Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping back 2,500 years to tackle a question that's right at the heart of one of the world's most influential philosophies. What does it truly mean to be an exemplary person? So let's get right to it. What kind of person truly is a Gen Z? An exemplary individual of virtue and wisdom. People have been wrestling with this question for centuries. And what's really fascinating is that even Confucius's own students, his inner circle, they couldn't agree on one single answer. So that's what we're diving into today. We're going to unpack this amazing debate recorded in the Analects. That's the classic collection of Confucius's teachings. And you'll see how his top disciples really went at it, arguing over the best way to cultivate yourself, how to handle yourself out in the world, and what it even means to learn anything. All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll look at how to deal with other people. Should you be strict or more open-minded? Then we'll see how that connects to learning. Are you focused on the root or the branches? And finally, we'll get into how all of them looked up to their teacher as, well, the ultimate role model. Okay, so let's start with a question that honestly feels like it could have been asked yesterday. When you're out there in your social life, your work life, should you be super selective about who you spend your time with? Or should you be more inclusive and open to everyone? And this is where two of Confucius's disciples, Zixia and Zizhang, had totally different takes. On one side, you've got Zixia. He's got this very principled, you might say, strict approach. His thinking is associate with people who are worthy, and if they're not, reject them. Simple as that. But then you have Zizhang, who comes from a completely different angle. He says, look, a Junzi honors the worthy, sure, but also tolerates the multitudes. He even says they should praise the good and pity the incompetent. It's a much more compassionate, big-picture view. And Zizhang really lands his point with this incredible rhetorical question. He basically asks, if I myself am unworthy, others will just reject me. So how can I go around rejecting other people? It's such a powerful idea. He's saying, hey, maybe we should focus on our own flaws before we start pointing fingers. It's a direct challenge to Zixia's more black and white way of looking at the world, and it really forces you to think about humility. But this whole debate didn't just stop with how to socialize. It spilled over into another huge area, education. What's the point of learning, really? Should you focus on the deep fundamental truths, what they called the root? Or is it more about mastering the practical, everyday skills, the branches? And this is where another disciple, Zayu, comes in and throws some serious shade at Zixia's teaching style. He says, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, Zixia students, they're great at the little things, the trivial stuff. But when it comes to the fundamentals, they're totally lost. He's basically questioning the entire method, right? Like, what good is it to know all the minor details if you've completely missed the core principles? But Zixia wasn't having it. He comes back with this really elegant defense. He argues that you can't just teach the root in a vacuum. Learning has an order, a sequence. He uses this great analogy of plants and trees. You have to sort them into categories and tend to them properly. You can't just skip ahead. For him, mastering those practical skills, those branches, is actually the necessary groundwork for reaching that deeper wisdom. You have to walk before you can run. And when you look at Zixia's actual method, you can see it's far from superficial. He had this very clear four-step process for learning. You have to figure out what you don't know every single day. You have to remember what you've learned every month. You need to learn broadly, but always with a firm purpose. And you have to ask sincere questions and think about what's right in front of you. So his approach was actually this really sophisticated mix of practical action and deep thinking. So you've got these two big debates swirling around, how to act and how to learn. It's Zixia versus Zizhang, Zixia versus Zio. But then another disciple named Zigong steps in and just elevates the whole conversation. Yeah, so instead of picking a side and arguing about who was right or wrong, Zigong completely reframed the goal. He basically told them they were all looking at the problem from the ground floor when they should be looking up at the standard set by their teacher, Confucius. He suggests they're all just pieces of a much bigger puzzle, and Confucius is the whole picture. And he uses two absolutely brilliant metaphors to explain this. Okay, so first up is the palace wall metaphor. Zigong says, my own wisdom, it's like a wall that's only shoulder high. Anyone can just peek over and see what's there. But the master, Confucius, his wisdom is like a palace with walls that are many, many feet high. If you can't find the main gate, you have no way of seeing the incredible beauty of the temples and the richness of the halls inside. It's a beautiful way of saying that their small debates are just single bricks in this massive, magnificent structure that was Confucius's wisdom. And if that wasn't enough, Zigong closes with an even more powerful image. He says, other wise people, other sages, they're like hills. They're impressive, for sure, and maybe with enough work, you could even climb over them, surpass them. But Confucius, he's the sun and the moon. He's not something you surpass. He's a cosmic force, a constant guide in the sky that's just on a completely different plane of existence. What an incredible way to make a point, right?
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? The key thing to realize is that this debate wasn't about one side winning. The way of the Junzi isn't about following one rigid rule. It's a dynamic balance. You actually need both Zixia's strict principles and Zizong's broad tolerance. You need the practical skills, the branches, and you also need that deep foundational wisdom, the root. All these different views, which seem to clash, are actually essential parts of the same path toward a more complete and comprehensive wisdom.
And that really brings this ancient debate right into our lives today, doesn't it? It leaves us with a challenge. In your own life, how do you balance being principled with being tolerant? How do you balance deep learning with practical, everyday action? It's a conversation that's been going on for thousands of years, and it makes you wonder, where are you on the path of the Junzi today?